Hi there. All right, I think.
All right.
Oh, turn your microphones on.
Switch.
Oh, no, I've already got the switches on. I just need you to turn the individual switches on the microphones.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
Don't want you?
no, try it again. Or there you go. Now you got it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Kennedy Center. My name is David Schwalbe. I'm on the board of directors here at the center. And I am the treasurer, and here at the Kennedy Center, we're a 501c3. We promote open discussion on a wide range of topics. We are nonpartisan, open to anyone that has a topic to discuss. We are here as an educational tool to promote open government. I got pressed into this job.
You're welcome.
I agreed to do it Thursday dinner and Sam's gonna buy. So you're gonna have to bear with me. It's probably not gonna go real smooth at times, but we will try. Tonight, we are here to discuss issues pertaining to the livestock industry and the politics of the forces driving. We have assembled a panel of people who have been involved in the beef industry and are now willing to talk about what is happening in the industry. They would try to give us some insight into what it would take to come up with some reasonable solutions to make the beef industry more workable and
You see people. I'm gonna turn his.
The statement that capitalism and profits are good. It shows inventiveness, ingenuity, and hard work. But it has to be within reason. Within reason. I ask you, is what is going on right now in the beef industry reasonable? With that question in mind, let's get on with the program. We have a panel tonight, and Nicole, Wardner, executive director of the North Dakota Beef Commission, and the NDPCA manages the state beef checkoff program. She serves as an advocate of the North Dakota beef industry and its producers. Wardner and her husband, Cody, sons, Royce and Henry. There you go. Run a commercial cow calf operation and a small grain farm near Meyer, North Dakota. Former jobs, Red River Grain Farm near farm network is on the air farm broadcast. Okay, I screwed that one. USDA Farm Service Agency Program Technician, Sheridan Valley, North Dakota. NDSU Extension Ag and Natural Resources Agent, Sheridan County. Vaughn Meyer, Chairman of our calf checkoff committee. Vaughn is a third generation rancher on a cow calf near Viva, South Dakota. Attended SDSU, was first lieutenant in Army. Director and past president of South Dakota Stock Roses Organization for Competitive Marketers, Checkoff Chairman for RCAF USA, served 11 years on the South Dakota Beef Council and 6 years on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Frank Tomac, president of IBAND, Independent Beef Association of North Dakota. President of Cedar River Grazing Association, past president of the Association of National Grasslands, member NDFU, IBAND, USDA, RCAF USA. Frank ranches in Sioux County, North Dakota. He currently leads the Independent Beef Association of North Dakota, addresses threats to the domestic cattle industry by unfair and illegal trade practices, and imports and issues affecting the profitability of the North Dakota beef producers. Christian Lovell, Farm Action Fund Senior Director of Programs, former legislative director to the U.S. Representative Rosa DeLauro, National Growers Association, the World Bank, and Inform Economics, native to and residing in West Central Illinois, where he ranches and advocates for regenerative grazing and is actively involved in the Illinois Grazing Lands Coalition. We also have Corey Hart, DRC, IBAND, Hart Capital. Corey Hart and his wife Leanne own Hart Land and Cattle, established 1898. Operation herds cattle and runs a feedlot marketing cattle to 3 and 4 major packing plants and smaller upper Midwest packing plants. They also sell privately to individuals. Corey is a charter member of the president of the Golden Meat Packing Processing Plant Board of Directors in Golden. So welcome, gentlemen, and we also have a celebrity here tonight. We have Katrina Christensen, who is running for the Senate. And she is here as an interested observer. And she's going to try and learn what the beef industry is all about. And she is probably going to ask some questions, which is good. That's what we're here for, is to learn. That's part of our objective of the Kennedy Center, is to learn. Tonight's topics are cool. Cool stands for Country of Origin Language. In the early 2000s, a policy was created by the federal government to track where food products were grown, raised or caught. The policy was first applied to fisheries, but was expanded to other foods very quickly, including the beef industry. The law was quietly repealed for beef in 2016 to a dispute with the World Trade Organization. Some cattle groups have been working to get the law reinstated. The discussion will be about how would the reinstatement of food affect ranchers and farmers. We also here to discuss EID tags, electronic identification tags. Cattle currently use some form of analog tagging, but recently electronic ones with chips in them have been made that can be scanned and tracked. Currently, they are not mandatory, but maybe in the near future. Today's discussion will cover the possible consequences of mandating. North Dakota Beef Checkoff, state and federal. The North Beef Council, the system where every cow sold is charged $2 a head to contribute to a fund that would give $1 to the state checkoff and $1 to the federal checkoff. The state money is allocated by the North Dakota Beef Commission, consisting of 8 board members and 2 ex officio members. The checkoff in North Dakota is voluntary, but forms have to be filled out requested back. The federal checkoff is mandatory based on the promotion of beef in the United States. We're also going to discuss the OFF Act and the American Beef Labeling Act. The OFF Act is the Opportunities for Fairness in Farming Act, which was intent of increasing transparency and prohibit conflicts of interest in checkoff foods for anti-competitive practices. The legislature will require third-party audits of checkoff organizations and prohibit them from funding or lobbying any political campaigns. The American Beef Labeling Act, the legislature would reinstate mandatory country of origin labeling for beef. It would do so by bringing back laws from 2009 to 2015. So we have a panel, and we are going to discuss one topic at a time. So how are we going to do this, Sam?
Let's just talk about the implementation of COOL and how it could affect
Okay.
various organizations.
And we will start.
I appreciate that. However, the North Dakota Beef Commission is a state agency, and by federal and state law, we can't talk about policy type issues, and COOL or mandatory country of origin labeling is a policy type issue. So that is not something that the North Dakota Beef Commission has not in our realm of what we can do.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up.
Yep.
Okay.
And if it's policy, yeah. If it's policy, yeah, we can defer questions to the other panel members.
Right. And Christian, you want to go with that question?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Take the microphone. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if it's evening yet, getting there, I think, well, at 4 o'clock, so good evening. It's really good to be in North Dakota. Spent most of the day yesterday in the car driving up here from Illinois, so a very pretty country. Rain, I stayed at the night in Fargo last night, drove over, it was raining when I left, but really nice day by the time I got over. Thank you for having me. I can say, farm action fund, we do support mandatory country of origin labeling. We also have worked really hard with the USDA to close their loophole regarding the product of USA labeling regulatory, what is the loophole? I mean, I think I would just take a step back from the beginning, and as I kind of look around this room, I think probably every item in this room has a country of origin label. I mean, obviously, if there were things that were made in the United States, they might not have it. But certainly every article of clothing I have on my being right now has it. Any sort of fabric or textile has it. And then, and my family raises cattle, and I think what frustrates me is you can go in the grocery store and almost every other food product has it. So, I maybe showing my juniorness a little bit, but, I was in college for about that time when some of the cool stuff was going on, some of the lawsuits and stuff, probably didn't pay as much attention to what some of my professors were saying about it as I should have been. But it doesn't matter. I still don't think I could understand it. I mean, I don't understand why every other item, almost every other food item, but it's a problem for some people. For me, that's just not fair, right from the get-go. And then the other thing is, my kind of background and training is in economics, and I guess just from an economic perspective, right, the thought is when the consumer has all the information they need, they make the right choice. And I do think that consumers deserve doubt that down around the Amazon rainforest, there's probably some, I'm probably not in favor of chopping down Amazon rainforest so that they can raise more cattle in Brazil and ship them up here. But I think study after study has shown that the American beef producer produces beef in the most sustainable way as anywhere in the world. All of that gets lost when we're not able to label our product. So I know we got some other gentlemen on the other table.
Thank you. Good point. Vaughn, would you like to weigh in on this?
You can just pull the mic off and hand it to people.
Yes, I, country of origin label, like he said, beef and pork are the only two commodities that aren't allowed to put a label on there since the 2016 when it was killed. 2016 when it was in prior to that for 2 years when it was mandatorily supported. The prices, we all witnessed some really high prices, almost parity for our product in the first time in probably close to a century, at least 50 years. So as soon as they killed it, if you looked, when they went to the legislature and they asked them to vote it down, why immediately in June, why the prices started falling, and then by December when the Senate confirmed that, why we lost over 50% or close to a 45 to 50% of our product. Why was that? Well, not only was it the consumer was choosing US beef, and they that was the only thing that could move. But what was it really doing was stopping the captive supply of the foreign coming in, and that captive supply is what's constantly holding us down in this country on there, and they're bringing a lot of that in as we've seen since they killed it, and they're mixing that meat and as soon as it's, or even so much as re-wrapping or repackaging that meat, they stamp a USA label on, which is about as much fraud as anything you can do in the United States on there. If we tried doing some of that with our products, we wouldn't be here. I'd be behind bars somewhere. So anyway, that's where we are. He mentioned that, or again, I guess I take that back on. He mentioned that it's a policy issue. Yes, it's a policy issue because everybody wants to make it a policy issue. But it's no more a policy issue than our checkoff, which we'll discuss later on. And that it's exactly what our checkoff was trying to do for all these years, and that's promote our product. So if it's a policy issue, our checkoff is also a policy issue in there. And I have some reserve about that too, and we will visit about that a little later on. But I find it odd that, I wouldn't say the word odd so much, but difficult to believe that when they kill that pork and beef are the only two commodities that can't have it. And why is that? Because they were the only two that the major big four controlled. You know, fish, chicken, all of them, chicken doesn't even have a checkoff. They're doing excellent without it, so. It's time that we get that pool back into the farm bill this year, and, I know they're fighting it hard, and of course our checkoff is fighting it hard on, by supporting the lobbying against us and that, so, but. We gotta keep up the work, we gotta talk to the senators and our representatives and keep pushing, because that farm bill, when it comes through, which will probably be later than sooner, which will give us more time. We definitely need to get that back in there.
I had to order a dryer part for our dryer at our house, and when it came in the mail, it actually said country of origin - Mexico. I was so appalled by that, I couldn't believe it, a country of origin from Mexico, it actually said that. I think we need to go further than just label our beef, what we need to do is, more importantly, is label the beef that's coming into our country, so we know where it's coming from, and keep that right down the line. If McDonald's and all the fast food chains want to utilize that cheap beef, let them. Let's utilize our own beef. When our beef goes across the seas to Asia, it's labeled product of the US, the beef is. Why can't Brazilian imports be labeled product of Brazil when it comes into our country, and maintain that same state all the way down through the pipeline? It baffles me on why that has to be, that we as ranchers have to pay for that pay the price for that. I think that's all I had. I mean, the reason it got shut down was the WTO, and ironically, isn't Canada the one that shut us down, and now they have their own product label for them?
Even with our imports being as high as they are, and we're exporting about the same amount of product. The consumers should really have their choice. Because there's a pretty good chance that most of our product that is raised in the US is being exported. And the domestic use of the imported, and we need trim. Clark Price made a point of that at another meeting, that we need lean ground beef to put trim product in, and that's fine. That can go to McDonald's or all the fast food places. At least the consumer knows what they're buying when they get it. Yeah, we're in DC this winter and went to the restaurant, a cafeteria there. I don't remember what building it was, and everything was labeled product of USA except beef on that sign, and that was pretty darn sad.
Thank you. Should we open this up for questions on this?
Yeah, I have one from chat, from Merrill Pepcorn. Who or what forces, financial or otherwise, are preventing cool labeling we are all looking for?
That again?
Who or what forces, financial or otherwise, are preventing cool labeling from?
Well, I don't know, but from my understanding, it's, and haven't read their policy, but the NCBA, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, is totally against mandatory cool.
The Packers are definitely against it. I mean, 100%. They do not want country of origin labeling. And they're gonna fight us tooth and nail to keep us that big. And I'll throw NCBA under the bus. I mean, they're backers of the big industry, the major backers, whatever they want, that's their agenda.
I guess, get right to the very bottom of your question, who's financing it? That's us, the people that pay the checkoff. And yes, it's NCBA is the #1 contractor, and they get the bulk of our checkoff money. And in Washington DC, they have over 90 some lobbyists down there those lobbyists are supported by certain fewer than my checkoff dollars in there. Okay.
I got a question. Why is it labeled checkoff and not labeled the tax? Basically, it's a tax.
It's a very good question, and yes, in the case, and I can't, tip my tongue from Billings, Montana. When they claimed that, they didn't have to pay it, the federal government come in and said, yes, it is a tax. You're correct there. It should be labeled a tax, but yes.
And basically, you got taxation without representation. That could be.
Yeah, that's.
Try to speak in the microphone too. Yeah,
Basically, you got taxation without representation, back to the old patriot days when they threw the T in the T.
They will say that you have, when the checkoff was set up, there was supposed to be ability to have referendums. It's never happened. You have to have over 10% of the individuals to sign. And they had over 10% one time, and of course, they threw out all those names because maybe somebody didn't fill their name in quite right, or their address or something. So it's almost impossible to get a referendum on there. So yes, it is taxation without representation.
I'd like to make
Yes.
a comment about that.
Yep.
Because we're talking about the checkoff. The representation is all on the state and the national level by all producers. So the checkoff is run by producers. They have to say and where the investments go and how they're invested. In North Dakota, we have a 9-member board. It can be up to 13 with ex officio members. But we have 9 producers that sit and make decisions in North Dakota. And then there is the Cattlemen's Beef Board, which dictates where the national checkoff dollars go. And that's run currently by 99 beef producers from a majority of the states. They get to have a say and get a vote. North Dakota has 2 representatives. It's based on cow numbers, but they can be feedlot owners, they can be calf operators, they can be backgrounders, stockers. They all get to make the decisions. Dairy producers also get to make the decisions. So as far as who makes the decisions on where the investments go, it's coming from the grassroots and from the producers and from all over the country.
Thank you. Anybody want to respond?
I'd like to, and I'll pass it down real quick. Yes, I sat on the Cattlemen's Beef Board for 6 years, and I was nominated there by my locals, and of course we were approved by the Secretary of Ag. And prior to 1996, yes, all of the people that were sent to the Cattlemen's Beef Board, then 20 of them would make up the operating committee, and we would select amongst ourselves, or they would. That was prior to my time, who would be on that operating committee. And after 1996, when they had the merger of the Federation of the Livestock Meat Packers and Board, that federation got moved in under NCBA, and immediately they gave NCBA, or the Federation, I should say, which is a division of NCBA. They gave them half the seats on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. The largest contractor has total control of the operating committee on there. So yes, it's probably local producers, but you better be affiliated and you better have a membership with the NCBA, or you aren't going to sit on it.
Yeah, the state board is, it's handpicked, in my opinion, so as far as that goes. But I want to disclose some numbers. Our checkoff dollars go, this is how they're distributed. American Farm Bureau Foundation for Agriculture gets 800,000. Cattlemen's Beef Board gets $1.8 million. Foundation for Meat and Poultry Research and Education gets $500,000. Northeast Beef Promotion Initiative gets $900,000. NCBA gets $25.405 million. National Institute for Animal Agriculture gets 60,000.
are these national figures or state figures?
National.
Okay, just to clarify.
North American Meat Institute gets 330,000. United States Meat Export Federation gets $8,150,000. But to add to the checkout dollars, I guess, you know, it's to promote US beef. But with our imports being as high as they are, we're promoting all the imported beef also. So it's not fair to the US producer, in my opinion.
If I could just respond real quickly, as far as the checkoff goes on the national level, when we get together, and then. Honestly, I love to tell producers that the checkoff is simply complicated in the matter of that the checkoff is meant to drive demand for beef. So our mission is to promote beef through research, education, promotion, thank you. I used it in the sentence already. So that's really where we sit as far as the beef commission, all the beef councils across the country, and as well as, the Cattlemen's Beef Board. However, so they're right, there are producers that sit there on the Cattlemen's Beef Board, they're appointed by the US Secretary of Agriculture. They have to be nominated from an organization from their state in order to get that seat, or to be, considered to sit there. So the Secretary of Ag is the one that gets to determine who sits there, and in North Dakota, the governor gets to decide who sits on our board, and you can be promoted by an organization, the dairy producers, the Livestock Marketing Association, as well as, the North Dakota Stockmen's Association, but there's also 3 at-large positions that are open as well. And so anybody that feels like they could serve on the North Dakota Beef Commission is able to put their name in the hat as well. So, that's how that's all set and how that's decided.
Any
Hey, I'm just wondering here, are we gonna go into a checkoff? Or are we gonna stay in the
Yeah.
pool?
I-
We're kind of bouncing.
Yeah.
Okay,
I got a question on cool, I just don't know if we're gonna go there or.
Oh, yeah, let Ron go. I've got one too.
okay. So, yeah, we did kind of get off the weeds here without talking about food. But anyway.
Ron has a question.
Okay.
As far as cool goes, well. I can be loud enough, don't worry.
Well, it's also.
As far as cool goes, if you look at the numbers, and I don't have them in front of me, we've been kind of busy, but this is what I've read to the best of my knowledge, so if you're gonna pick my numbers apart, I could be off of them. But as they stated, by the time we import and we export, right now, the trim, fresh trim and the frozen trim, those 2 numbers are basically the same. The difference in this whole deal is the money that we're making, that the packers are making. They can import it for cheap. Then they export it as a product of the United States. Or a mixed product of the United States, giving other countries the, what I want to say, the impression that it's coming from the United States. We don't consume a lot of beef though, yet we import beef now. And then we export. But it's all about dollars and cents. So when you ask who's behind it, it's the packers who are driving this because they're the ones making the money. And I don't think anybody here is against any organization or any business making money. But, you know, when it's on the backs of US producers, and all you have to do is label our product and give people the choice. When they're already at slaughter, the imported cattle and imported,
Box beef. Box beef.
yeah, box beef is already, that's already done on separate days. So it's not like they have to go, oh, well, this steer was imported, so he's gotta go there. No, they slaughter them on separate days. They cut up on separate days. This is not something that's that hard to do. What it does is it's taking a little bit of money out of packers' profits. And they're making record profits, Even with cattle prices where they're at. So that's where you got it.
Thank you.
I think let's move on to the next topic because we're at 4:30 already, so we want to talk about.
David, should I ask a question? Yeah, so, I heard, I think it was Vaughn say that you saw a 50% reduction in margin after Cool stopped. 45 to 50, okay. We'll say it was 45. What, all of these organizations that claim to be helping beef producers, they don't want to go up against the Packers or the WTO and do the country of origin labeling. What have they said will get you back to that 45% increase on your margins where you said you had parity? What are the solutions other than Cool to get you guys making money again? What are they?
Well, just to be on that, I don't know, I'd say a fair playing field, with our competitive meets. But not to get off subject, and I do want to answer that man's question. Last week at our plant in Lovell, North Dakota that I'm part of, we could get boxed meat in, and there is no way that that meat was US meat for what they quoted us for price. You would have to use every part of a cow burger animal to even make that work. So, and that was being offered to us as an option, but no way.
I would say my answer to your question would be country of origin labeling. That's the only way to get back there
Okay.
on that. You know, it's literally what put us in the driver's seat and what's gonna keep us going. Country of origin labeling for only the 2 years that it was in there. We had our checkoff for, I guess we're close to 50, well, not quite that much, 35 years. In 2 years, it did what we were hoping to do with our checkoff, and that's never done it, never probably will.
Okay. That's, we discussed pretty well. We could talk about this all day.
Cole, would you have any solutions to offer as well? In the, for the sake of fairness, yeah, okay.
We could talk about this all day.
Yep.
But let's move on. EID tags, very controversial. Something that's popped up here lately. It's been around for a while, but lately they've been pushing it. So who wants to start the conversation on the EID ear tags?
Oh, I guess I will.
Maybe a quick explanation of what EID tags are too, just.
Well,
yeah.
EID tags, the North Dakota requires all animals of breeding stature over the age of 18 months need to be identified. Now, right now, they're being, most of it is bangs vaccinating tags, which are metal tags, put clips into the ear. They want to make it mandatory that all of them are RFID, radio frequency identification. So the USDA is making a policy that way. They're coming down and saying for interstate shipment, it has to be mandatory RFID tags and no more metal clips. Well, I talked to the state vet last week actually. About half the tags in North Dakota are metal tags still, and the other half are RFID tags. Now, if they go completely RFID tags, they're not going to have enough tags because the USDA sends tags to each state for them to use. A lot of producers use it. The fact is, we have one producer in our audience that uses the tags. No, not you. Your neighbor does.
No,
Oh, you do too, yeah.
we use EID tags because we self-program cattle.
Yep.
Or an HCC or all that, in which case you have to have them third-party verified. But that's our choice.
Yep,
and
that's right.
Program that we do.
And you pay for the tags.
And
So what the USDA wants to do is mandate all of them tags And I found out last week that they're not gonna pay for them. They're only gonna allocate 90,000 tags to the state of North Dakota, when I don't even know how many they put in with Banks tags. Right now, Banks tags are free, the metal tags, I believe, are free. So my question is, how many vets are gonna quit being veterinarians because more regulations coming down from the USDA?
Frank.
And who's gonna pay for all them tags?
That, we got the tag, but don't forget about the tattoo. That verifies, that stays with them forever. With the metal tags. If
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just a metal tag,
Right, the metal tags also have a tattoo,
Right.
right, when you bang vaccinated. The bulls don't though. The sexually intact bulls that are over 18 months old, you know, they have to be tagged also when they go across state line. If they're continued.
I do have a question from the chat that's relevant. Colette Kramer asks, have they done any research on how these tags affect the livestock? Are there any adverse reaction to them?
I can't answer that question. No, I've never used RFID tags, so I wouldn't know. Anybody?
I take a stab at that. I don't have any research, but I would guess that there would be no harm to the cattle, because there isn't much harm much value for a producer like myself to put them in out there, because those are low frequency tags. The only way they can be read is going down a chute within, say, 6 inches to a foot from the panel that reads them on there. And they do me no good out there, even, you know, if they lose the number part, if I put the number part on with the EID and they lose that way, I don't even have a clue what the number of that is. I gotta send somebody out to rope the cow and drag it down and take their wand and we'll run over there and check it, you know, on the thing. It's worthless, the system is. Now, if they were talking high frequency, we'd have a better chance on that. And that low frequency, the main thing about it is what's that gonna cost producers? A lot of them don't have facilities on it to run that stuff down, and they aren't going to do it before they hit the sale barns. If those cattle are leaving the state, that means the sale barns are gonna have to run all them through. You take some of these sale barns like Fort Pierre and them that run 11,000 head of cattle through in a day. They might be working cattle all week long just for that one day, or they either that or they're gonna have to break their sales up into it. And that price is gonna come right back to us, and not just the cost of the tag, but the cost of working them and that.
Anybody else have one?
We've done program cattle too, and it's a way of agent source verification for shipping this product to mainly European countries. And there's a premium paid to it, but there's a good chance that's gonna go by the wayside, because every animal is gonna be aged and sourced with this EID tag. So, I don't know, to me personally, it's a win-win for the packers. It's not gonna, producer's not gonna get down, but this.
Okay.
Well, I just to follow up on what was just said, I think that's really interesting. The producer premium is gonna go away, but the packer will still be able to export into that export market. And so the packer is capturing, the packer's capturing that. So I didn't want, I know that's what he was saying, I didn't want to underscore that. I think that's my biggest problem with this is take a step back. I'm all for traceability to some degree. There's value in that. I'll give you the caveat is I think we all found out during COVID that traceability and contract tracing isn't what everyone thinks it is. I mean, it's not 100% foolproof. But I think there's something to be said for that. I can't help but think that this path that we're on, you know, with USDA's rule is people like us up here paying for the Packers traceability program. And I have a problem with that. I mean, why is it on us to pay for their program so that they can then, you know, reap the benefits of it? And you know, I just say every cow and calf that's on our farm, I can tell you where they came from. Most of them were born and raised on our property, but you know, and I think that you know, there's some differences in different operations, you know, but I don't like that my method and my choice of how I manage my herd, how I trace for my stuff is being taken away. I mean, that, to me, that's wrong.
Any other comments? Would you like to comment? You would like to comment? Okay, my question is, who's gonna benefit?
Talk in the microphone.
Who's gonna benefit from this? What's the purpose of this thing? I mean, is it any better than what we've been doing in the past?
The USDA claims that there'll be better traceability if and when a foot and mouth disease or a major disease breaks out in this country. The only way foot and mouth disease can come into this country is through our imports. That's the only way it's gonna happen. So if we force RFID tags onto our domestic producers, it's not gonna help us a damn bit. Because the imports are what's gonna cause the disease outbreak. Let's RFID all of that, all of the imported beef and all of the imported cattle if there are any live cattle coming in. That's where the ID needs to come into.
Country of origin, so.
Well, I think the question came over here a minute ago about, you know, the packers will export some of the higher value stuff and then we import, you know, that whole scheme. I think when this rule goes into effect and when this policy becomes, I'd be really interested to see what those promotional marketing activities in those export markets, they're going to highlight this. You know, it's the same thing with some of the grain, you know, some of the grain trade associations do. They go into those export markets and they highlight the different things. I mean, well, your question was who reaps the benefits? It's going to be the packers in the export markets, and we'll be stuck with tags that we can't find.
Question.
Well, this is a stepping stone. Okay, they're using this as a disease traceability tool on breeding age animals over 18 months of age. It's gonna come down to where, because it's already been voted down in comments twice. And the USDA don't care what we have to say. They basically thumb their nose at it. So in 2 to 3 years, they'll come up with something saying, you know, we just need more disease traceability on everything. So they'll mandate them on everything. It is a stepping stone to where they want to get us. And right now, they can trace a disease, the domestic beef, in 1 hour. Without the ID tag. You think the ID tags are gonna speed it up that much more? And the tag isn't gonna prevent it. Let's work on prevention before we work on doing our own test, you know, on the import, like Frank said.
Thank you, Frank.
But I'd like to comment on that. Yes, you're exactly right. This is a stepping stone. Today, it's cattle leaving the state over 18 months of age. Tomorrow will be all cattle in the state. It's also the danger of the thing is a premise ID number has to be wrote down, which will give them access to everything you do, how you do it, and why you do it. How do you treat your family? How do you treat your cows? And it's just part of the sustainability, and it's a global movement, is what it is. And it'll put a lot of people out of business, but with record keeping on the thing. And in South Dakota, to answer your question there, we had a banks outbreak here about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now. And within the first day, we knew every place that had gone in the state. By the second day, we knew how that got to the state in there. And we currently have a law on the books that people can use 5 forms of identification, whether it be brands, ear tags, tattoos, and so on there. And it's been very successful and works. We're not against people using electronic ID. That's their choice if they want to do it on there. But making it mandatory and letting everybody know what your property is, how much property you have, whether it's your cattle or your facilities or what, that's your business and my business.
Thank you.
I have one question from the chat. It's from Karen Anderson. And it says, do producers bear the cost of legislated electronic ear tags? And if so, packers should pay for the tracking, is what she further comments. Do producers bear the cost of legislated electronic ear tracking?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there's about 90,000 tags will be allocated to North Dakota for that RFID program, which takes effect November 5th, I believe it is. Anything over that, where's the money gonna come from? Is it gonna be state funded? Is it gonna be producer funded? Is, you know, we'll have to wait for the legislative session to start after January 1st to even decide that if the legislature wants to pay for that. So it's gonna come down to the producers. The producers are gonna have to pay for it. Actually, the vets are gonna have to pay for it, and then when the vets implement those tags, then they'll cost that or pass that cost right down into the producer.
And USDA is one that, I mean, they're pushing it, but our congressional people on the Ag Committee are oversight of USDA. So I think people need to call the congressman. I don't care where you're from. Get after.
Another question.
Well,
Let's-
more of a statement, I'm sorry. When you talk about the price of the tags, so we switched over to EID on, you know, for the program. On our computers. But we have implemented them. Our vet has come out and through the state of North Dakota, it doesn't cost me anything. So when he bangs our efforts, he does put an EID tag. We use, let's just say we bangs 90 heifers, we'll lose 2 to 3 of them. By freight checking time in September. So they're not foolproof, number one. The other deal is just last fall, we were gonna, IMI Global, somewhere along the line, the tags didn't get to us in time. We were lined up to precondition our calves and put those EID tags in our feeder stage. Okay, through IMI Global, I pay roughly $3.25 to $3.90, depending on how many tags you order. Okay, that's third party verified, the same tags. I went to my vet because we needed to get it done. He sold those same tags to me for 75 cents because the state subsidized him on that side of it. So when you start talking about who's gonna make the money on this part of it, it's gonna be the tag manufacturers. Because you think about it now. If this gets mandated, these tags will be $10 a piece. The readers are gonna go from $1,500 to $5,000 because you're gonna have to have them.
I could see where this could. I could see where this could turn into a bookkeeping nightmare. Because when I was in college, I worked for the vet for a part-time job in the afternoons, and we'd go to the country and bang, vaccinate and whatever. And the next year we'd go back and replace metal tags that had already fallen out. So then you got the booklet to go with redoing the numbers. I could see where this could be an expensive thing.
And we still have to keep our normal tagging system because if they lose one, you're gonna have to. Put the new metal in the EID tag to match that same ear tag that was used for 50 years.
Question in the back.
Furthermore, if it becomes mandatory, what's the value of that animal gonna be when you lose a tag? Now, all of a sudden, the packers or the guys buying beef, they're not gonna pay anything, right? It's gonna be like a cow with a short ear or something like that, right? They're gonna discount the hell out of it. So they're just gonna make more money on top of us, you know, at that point too.
And that's a good point, because we've lost them in transport to the packing plants. Where they will catch them in the slots to the sides of the trailers, and we just got conventional price for those same animals.
To your questions there, in Australia has this program, and if the cattle lose their number and you don't report it or get them re-tagged on there, there's a huge fine, and I can't remember how much it was they were fining them. And I believe the last I knew, there was like 900,000 cattle on their roster. That more than they actually have in their numbers, has been that much lost in there. If I can say one thing about this thing though, the real problem with this whole thing is, and we had a young gal, many of you probably heard her, came to RCAF, her name was Eva, and I'm not even gonna try and pronounce her last name, from Holland over there in Netherlands. And she gave us a warning last year about that. She said, whatever you do in the United States, and she said, I believe you guys will do it because you're strong over here, but she said, don't let that happen. Because the minute we got electronic ID, in came the environmentalists and the carbon people, and right away they started blaming your cows. And of course, the states fell in line, and right now, the Netherlands, New Holland in particular, I believe have asked for a 40% reduction in cow herds. And they can do it through electronic ID. Scotland has fallen in line, and I see recently where England is even coming along. That means that Vaughn, Meyer, if you've got 500 cows out there, you're gonna cut 40% tomorrow. You better ship 200 head to market. I'll be out of business.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? We'll move
No,
on
let's-
to the North Dakota beef checkoff, but I'd like to mention that we have Merrill Petcorn on the Zoom,
Yes,
and he's running for governor.
Correct.
Democratic ticket, so welcome, Merrill. Okay, the North Dakota beef checkoff, state and federal. This is a good question, and it's one that we are going to tackle. Who wants to take it first? You want to do this?
I would love to talk about the beef checkoff.
yeah,
This is my job.
yeah,
So in North Dakota, beef checkoff has been around since 1973. And federally, it's been around since 1985. It was part of the Farm Bill in 85, implemented in 86. In 2015, we added a state checkoff dollar. So now we collect $2 every time a bovine animal is sold. And those dollars can go for promotion, research, and education. That's it. End of story. That's all we can spend the dollars on. I like to say that we focus on the end product, where the guys to my left are focusing on the beginning product, where they've got the cattle and I take care of the beef part of it. Our job is to make sure that at the end of the day, the consumer walks into the grocery store or to a restaurant and their choice is to pick beef. Well, it doesn't matter what kind of beef. It doesn't matter if it's organic, grass-fed, whether it's prime or select. It's just that they choose beef, so that the demand for beef stays strong. And so that's really our whole purpose and the whole reason that we were created. I would like to also mention that we are a state agency. We're a special fund state agency, meaning that we are only funded by checkoff dollars. We do not get appropriated funds from the legislature.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments?
I think Christian,
So you promote
Yeah.
all beef,
yeah,
foreign and domestic, and there's no differentiate between the two, correct?
Well, I think we've made the fact
We've
really,
made that.
really clear, Frank, that we don't have a labeling system, so beef is beef here. So yes, we promote beef.
So that you mentioned you take care of the end product and we're fighting for the beginning product. How ironic, we pay for the end product and we're only the beginning product, correct?
We get a say in what the end product does. So if you have representation on the beef commission board and how we promote the product.
In all reality, it's two separate entities. And it should be treated that way. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I guess I'm not totally up on North Dakota's program, living in South Dakota, but overall nationally, all of the beef checkoffs or commissions like yours promote beef, and exactly, I sat on ours for many years. So my question is, why before the checkoff started, was the average consumption in the United States almost 96 pounds of beef per capita, and today it is only 57 pounds?
That's a great question. Demand for beef and consumption of beef are two different things. So we drive demand for beef. Our purpose isn't to make sure that consumption stays high. Because we've got a lot more products and a lot more, different protein availability currently now in 2024 than we did back in 1973. So the consumer has a lot more choices, but we want to make sure that demand stays high, that people still are looking for a beef product and it's still available in whatever size or form or fashion that they want it to be, whether it's direct from the producer, direct from the ranch, or whether it comes out of Corey's processing plant, or whether it comes in a chain retail store or in a box beef store or a box grocery store.
That actually leads to a really good question. Colette Kramer actually is talking exactly about what you're talking about here. Can the beef checkoff support or promote North Dakota restaurants that sell North Dakota beef?
We can, we have to be careful because we can't show preference. Well, because everybody's paying it, so we can't show a preference over somebody else. So we want to make sure that everybody's being taken care of. Now, we do have marketing programs that are in place currently where we offer opportunities for producers that are selling direct off their ranch. We provide them marketing opportunities so that they can sell their product, their beef products. That's through the checkoff. The checkoff pays for that. Now, we pay for other products too and other marketing opportunities. So we're trying to balance those types of things out. So it would have to come through a request to the board, what the proposal would be. But there are some rules on the federal level of whether specifically if we can do something, like we wouldn't do something specifically with like certified Angus beef. Over and say that it's worse or better than Hereford beef.
I guess that would kind of lead me to a follow-up question. This is actually my personal follow-up question on this, but would that be something that's, you know, there's state and there's federal checkoff dollars? Can the board basically allocate state checkoff dollars to promote state or in-state products?
They could do that, yeah, that would be directed by them, but they're the ones that direct all of the things and the proposals, the promotions and the marketing tactics that we're utilizing, so they could do that.
All right, thank you.
Got a question?
Yeah, it piggybacks off of that last question.
Microphone.
Can everybody hear me?
Well, they can't.
It piggybacks off that last question. So the North Dakota part of it, the extra dollar that we pay in for the North Dakota tax or checkoff, should stay in the state of North Dakota. Therefore, when you're promoting the North Dakota beef, such as the beef to school program, it should be promoted as North Dakota beef, North Dakota schools. But we couldn't do that. That would be my question. On the federal, on the national level, that percentage of that dollar that you send to the federation or to the beef council, that you don't have any control over how that's those books. But the other dollar that we pay, that's where you guys have control over. That should stay in the state of North Dakota to promote North Dakota beef.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ron. So I recently did some research and looking into where we're spending our dollars. And what Ron's referring to is that of the $2 that we collect at the North Dakota Beef Commission, the $1 federal dollar is mandated to be split in half. We get to keep 50 cents here in North Dakota, and then we have to send 50 cents to the national program or to the Cattlemen's Beef Board. So in North Dakota, the $2 we collect, we keep $1.50 in our state. Currently, we're spending $1.14 of that in our state. We're only sending 36 cents of every $1.50 out of our state. And that's being invested in the Federation of State Beef Council, which you might all recognize the brand Beef is What's for Dinner. So we're investing in that promotional brand, which is a top 5 brand in the United States. And then we're also investing into the U.S. Meat Export Federation, which allows us to promote U.S. beef overseas. So we are spending that whole state dollar in our state, and then some of the national dollars being spent in our state as well.
Okay, but are you promoting North Dakota beef with that money?
So it would depend on the proposal and the tactic and whether it fell under certain federal and state laws. So under the state laws, we don't necessarily have anything that specifically says that it can't be. But under federally, we would have to follow those laws. So it would depend on what pool of funds we're pulling it from. And then if you can prove that it's North Dakota beef and that we're not disparaging against somebody else that isn't selling beef in the state, because we're very much on a federal and state level cannot disparage any producer's product or any other commodity products. So we need to make sure that everything is fair and even, and we're doing the best that we can with what we're given.
Well, I'm not saying we should compete against Corey and anybody else in Clark on that level. But it should be labeled as North Dakota beef, because that dollar is coming from North Dakota producers.
So who do you want to promote that beef to in schools?
I want
Because the
children-
kids aren't have buying power.
I want to promote it, I want the schools to promote it so the parents understand what their kids are getting.
Okay, so then I would love for you to bring a proposal to the beef commission, so that we can look it over and we can tackle that, because I think our board would be really interested in that.
Thank you.
Maybe you, excuse me, maybe you went through this before, okay, you send $1.36. Okay, you spend $1.36 per head within the state. Here you go.
$1.14.
$1.14.
$1.14.
Okay, maybe you've talked about this already, but, what do you, what costs, $1.14, what's it being spent for?
So our focus right now, our strategic priority at the Beef Commission, which is directed by the board, is to focus on youth. And so we're trying to. On youth, yep,
Okay.
because we want them to become the next consumers. And then there's a ripple effect. So we focus on the youth and currently doing that through a sports nutrition program for kids to choose beef over other proteins. Okay, because of its nutritional value and how they feel in sports. Then it goes on to the parents, because we want them to buy the beef for the kids, and then it goes on to the coaches, because we want them to understand. That's one piece of it, okay?
Okay, on the National Federation part of it, we're getting into our, I'm from South Dakota actually, but a North Dakota native. Okay, they don't have that, how many states have the $2? Is it North Dakota and there's enough? 19 of them, huh? I see.
It ranges from 50 cents to $2 and $2.
And I understand it's refundable, right?
In North Dakota, it is.
Okay, it isn't in other states?
Some other states it's not.
Okay, of the, how many ask for a refund? What percentage?
Well, we don't have a percentage of producers,
Yeah,
but I have a percentage of cattle. So we're running at 11% of the number of head that are marketed are refunded.
the rest, when they sell to it, probably don't want to waste the stamp, huh? But I'm just saying that, but the bottom end, $1, okay, there's 19 states, okay, you're saying you keep $1.14 within the state. The ones that don't have the $2, what are they doing?
They probably have more cattle than we do. We're at the top of the beef belt, so our cattle all go down. We don't have cattle that come up. So 40% of our cattle in North Dakota are actually marketed in South Dakota. And so when they go to a feedlot there, then they're South Dakota cattle after 30 days. And so when they're sold then South Dakota collects those dollars.
It goes back, basically, we need to get country fortune. It's so simple. It's so simple. I met with Senator John Thune a year ago. He came out to see me, I think, for a picture op. I'd say, Warren, really, I do. And then how he was gonna go to work, and he said, it's not gonna be a problem, not gonna be get a problem at all to get this country fortune labeling through. And the newspaper was there in the picture that did a story on it. He didn't want to touch none of the other problems we have, like the competition. But he did say this country fortune labeling is gonna go. It's the last time I heard from him. Absolutely, the last time. Simple, country of origin.
Here you go, yeah.
I'm curious, can you speak a little bit to if I heard you correctly, you said your state agency?
We are.
So can you speak a little bit I'm from North Dakota, as a state agency that is trying to promote North Dakota products, but at the same time you're balancing because you're just trying to promote the industry at large. I'm having a hard time understanding when it's a state dollar and we're trying to promote a state product, why we are trying to balance that interest with out-of-state interest, if you will.
Yep.
Because for me, I see an incredible opportunity for us to talk about feeding North Dakota first. We seem to be in this like, so I'm just curious if you can talk to that a little bit, if you would, please.
North Dakota's probably one of the highest beef consuming states. It's cultural for us, right? We don't have any other proteins for the most part. We have very small pork industry, turkey industry, all of it. It's just cultural. We have no seafood. We raise 13 times the amount of beef in our state than what we can consume. And so we're a beef exporting state. The rest of the country needs North Dakota in order to be able to consume a high quality product. And so when we say that we're investing in national programs, it's because we want the dollars to follow the beef. So we want the consumer that's in downtown Chicago, when they go to a restaurant, I want to choose beef today. I don't want to pick a salmon. We want the person in Atlanta who thinks about a holiday coming up. Let's choose ribeye steaks instead of picking something else. We want beef to be at the top of the plate because our beef is going a lot of other places that's not staying in here. Just because we produce so much, we're really good at it. And I think the guys to my left would agree that we like the product that we raise, my family included, and we want everybody to enjoy it. And so that's where the balance comes from, right? Is that we have a North Dakota product and we need to promote it, but it's not labeled. So we can't for sure tell a consumer, go get North Dakota beef in a grocery store because it doesn't have a label on it. And that comes down to laws. And that's where the policy issue comes, where I can't speak because I'm the one that carries out the laws that are written. I don't get to have a say in how the laws get to be written. I just get to carry them out after they are. And so until that's something that, if that happens, we need to make sure that we're not showing favoritism from one producer to another, or one breed to another, or one area of the country to another. So I get what you're saying. It's just that we are a net exporting state.
Can I ask one quick follow-up?
Okay, Shannon, go ahead.
Would you agree then that we should do a better job, but what is?
I'm sorry about that. What is the statistic then for how much North Dakota beef is actually staying and feeding North Dakota residents? Do you have a statistic to that?
No, that would be interesting.
Would-
I don't know.
I think that would be probably really important.
I have two comments, not to kind of go back to this, but to maybe go back to this. I had a little bit of trouble squaring how we measure demand with consumption. I think demand is consumption, so I just would maybe raise that. And there's some other things, from our lens, I think we're gonna talk about in a little bit with some of the legislation. We've got some transparency and accountability issues. I just can't help but think, and there was a gentleman back there who made a comment, that he said the C word, competition. I just can't help but think that a lot of these activities are actually offsetting the marketing costs of some of these corporations. And I tell you why, because when we think about how concentrated that side of things is on the end product side of things, there's not a pass through, right? So I'm not convinced that, we started the conversation talking about the initial product and the end product. If you increase $1 on the end product in a perfectly competitive market, that would flow back, right? But because it's so consolidated and concentrated on the retail side, that money is staying there. And I think that's the problem we as beef producers feel like, is that the benefits aren't getting back to us. One example is that, and it's not just the beef checkoff. I mean, it's all there's checkoffs for many different commodities. A lot of them pay to have these ROI studies done. I won't get into those. I have some really fundamental statistics.
ROI, return on
Return
investment.
on investments, right,
Okay.
right. So there is actually in some of the regulations, you know, they are required to publish and do these return on investment studies. I have some problem with like statistically how those studies are designed, but almost all the studies use retail prices. The retail price of beef doesn't really mean too much to me because I don't see the retail price of beef. And like I said, because right at that end retail thing, it's so consolidated, that segment of the market. If retail prices go up $1, my revenue doesn't go up $1. And to me, that's a fundamental problem when we're talking about some of these activities. So I just wanted to raise that because the C word was brought up, and I think it just adds another complication to this.
Yeah. It was brought up in chat just recently by Sarah Metzler that there are states that have their own label. She sent a website to KentuckyCattlemanBeef.com, and she stated that North Dakota can do it, but the checkoff dollars cannot lead the effort. I can come through the policy groups though. Kentucky's beef program is unbelievable, is what she comments. So any state legislators in this audience, there's a bill that you can bring up if you want. Yep.
Yeah, in answer to your question over there, I'm still checking my mailbox every day looking for that premium to come, you know, those premiums we make off of those foreign beef, you know, and all that. It kind of, some of the things I've seen on the beef checkoff in years ahead, and I was not against the beef checkoff. I voted for it. I thought we were gonna promote, we were gonna be right up there with Whittier and Camel cigarettes and you name it at that time, Kellogg cereals, we were gonna, instead of starting out with 1.3 million producers, I thought we probably end up with so many people who want to get into business, we have 2.3. The way it is, we've lost over 500,000 producers, we've lost, just in the last 10 years, we've lost 70,000 small family feedlots in that. What has really happened to it, and I was shocked by what I saw when I sat on both on the Cattlemen's Beef Board and on my state council, because the states do a good job. They try to work with the Northeast Initiative and that stuff. But there's so much red tape back there in the activity order, how that money gets funneled back. And after the 1996 merger, it's easier for them to funnel it back. There's a play-pay scheme in there, which she talks about, you know, $1.38 in the South Dakota is 50 cents that stays down there. That 50 cents, there's a lot of ways that they can invest that in the Federation, which it goes right back through the MCBA, our #1 contractor in there. And that pay-to-play scheme, and each state gets to see people on the Cattlemen's Beef Board by the number of cattle they have on it. So if you feel like you're gonna do something good, you can also buy seats on there. Per seat might cost around $13,000 to $15,000, and the last seat, when you get up there about 6-7 seats in there, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for those seats. And that's just a pay-to-play scheme to get that money funneled back over to the MCBA and let the packers use it on us. On there, it's one of the biggest federally approved Ponzi schemes you can find in this country on that deal. You know, you have a #1 contractor there that's getting up to 97% of the total money that comes through there. Why are they getting that? Because their people in staff are actually writing those authorizations requests in there. They're not only writing them, they're determining what the implementation fees are. The implementation fees are what you pay the hired man for working for you. And their implementation fees for 2023 were running 51.9% of that, all the things they write. They take home, and that is almost triple what the others got. When I sat on the Cattlemen's Beef Board, those implementation fees were year after year. That was the first thing I looked at. We're running anywhere from 38% to 42%, an average of 40. It was a flat rate for all the other contractors for that other 3% of the money, and that flat rate was 20% on there. So they're writing your check off. Your checkoff's been hijacked, and it's not working. And I'm not against the checkoff. It needs to be cleaned up, is what it needs to be done. It needs to work for people.
Got a question.
Just to point to the woman from Kentucky, North Dakota has
I don't believe she's from Kentucky. I just believe that she knows that
North Dakota
Kentucky's an
actually
example.
has, a labeling law, but it's a placard law. So the onus is actually on the retail side. So they can't, goes back to Herman's country board of labeling. So if they get boxed beef, they have no idea where it's coming from, so, but it would be up to them to put a placard on the cooler ones to say product of North Dakota, but North Dakota actually does have a law in effect to that.
Thank you. We are going to be running out of time. Let's move on to the.
we have
one more. Go ahead. Have at it.
Nicole, does the governor's office contact you for appointment process?
So state century code has in it that anybody that serves on the beef commission must be a participating producer, meaning that they do not refund the state dollar. And so the governor's office calls with a list of names that they want to verify of their final candidates who they're considering. And that's the only time that I get called to verify that their participation.
So research, promotion, and education. Recently, you took out an ad in the North Dakota Stockman's asking for or letting people know that there's a position at large.
Yep. I also sent it to your organization too, Frank, so that they could send it to their members.
Correct. So what part of research, promotion, or education is that?
It's letting people know that we have an at-large position available, and so if they'd like to, that they sure can apply for it, and it's available to them.
Is that more like lobbying?
I don't think so. I think it's letting people know that there's an at-large position that's open, that someone can apply for it.
Why was it only one magazine in our industry or ours?
I sent it to the cattle women too. I ran out of money in my producer communications funds.
Okay,
And so, I mean, the other producer magazines are really expensive.
yep. So,
And I'll also say too, Frank, that I don't have a list of producers in North Dakota. I have a list of producers that have either remitted to us personally for cattle sales that were in the country. They've either refunded or they have contacted us and put on our newsletter. So of the supposed 8,000 operations that we have in North Dakota, I only have a list of 1,300 producers. While I would love to be able to send out a letter to every single one or a postcard to every single one, I just don't have that capability, and I don't even know where they all live and exist.
so the governor just asked you if they've ever had a refund, basically,
Correct.
and there's no other, and you don't, and they don't do any other checking.
No.
Do you do any background checks on your members of your board
No.
to make sure they're qualified?
No.
Okay,
I mean, I'm not know what you're getting at. If they certify that they're a producer that they paid the check off with, then that's what we go
but
by.
the codified law is more than if they pay the check off, they have to have a operation that is sufficient scope and significance to signify a distinct activity. And has to regularly exercise direct control of that operation. So if you have a member that's has a job in town and they have cattle out on shares, they're not in compliance with this codified law.
Then I would say that you need to call the governor's office and share a complaint with them. Because as far as I'm concerned, that producer is a participating producer.
So there's a senator in the state senate that has cattle out on shares. He qualifies under your jurisdiction. He
As long as he's
qualifies.
paying into the check off, yes.
But he doesn't have a distinct activity. He doesn't have control over the operation. And I think that's where you should come in. And the North Dakota Beef Commission should come in and tell the governor that, hey, this person doesn't sell enough cattle. He sells 5 roping steers a year. Don't, no?
I'm not in the business of deciding whether somebody is cowboy enough to sit on the board.
Okay, we're getting.
Okay,
yeah.
That's one question. Nicole, did you pay the Stockman's magazine? Did you pay Everett or pay to put that out in there?
Yep.
And that's the only ad you paid for then?
Yep. Cause it's a third of the price of the other prices, like I said, I ran out of money.
It's still not, that ain't right. They one organization.
If you had a magazine, I would put it in IBAND too.
How about,
Okay, but it doesn't cost me anything.
how about North Dakota Farmers Union? They represent a lot of beef producers too.
We've never contacted them. That's something that I can definitely put on my list, Gary.
Okay, we're getting to tech.
Okay.
Can I make a comment about that real quickly? Because it's one thing that I think people need to look at. So the dollars that we pay into the checkoff, right, are a lot, right? It's for research, promotion, education. I don't know this to be true. I'm just saying it. You know, you take an organization like Iowa Soybean, and you take an organization like Iowa Corn, both have glossy, nice magazines. Iowa Corn buys an ad in Iowa Soybean. Iowa Soybean buys an ad in Iowa Corn, $1,000 full page ad. And now those dollars are unlocked. You know, I think somebody needs to look into that.
Thank you. We want to
Back to checkout. I feel discriminated just because I asked for my checkout dollar back. I should have just as much right as any other producer in the state of being on the board.
Thank you. Let's move on. We're gonna run out of time here. We're already over the off act and American beef liquid. Who wants to tackle that?
Let's let Christian talk a little bit about the off act.
Well, yeah, you know, obviously there's, this piece of legislation, Opportunities for Fairness in Farming Act, OFF Act. Farm Action Fund, the organization I work for, has endorsed the legislation. I worked in Washington, D.C. for several years as a congressional staffer on Capitol Hill. There are two parties there don't agree on much. And I always found that when you found two people from different parties agreeing on something, it's probably worth looking at. This bill is bipartisan. It's bipartisan with some of the more extreme people on both sides. So a lot of times people look at this legislation and they're kind of scratching their heads, like this New Jersey senator is partnering with somebody out west. It's really a simple bill, right? You know, so I've worked on a lot of pieces of legislation, some that are like 2,000 pages. This is a pretty short bill. It's pretty succinct. And basically the main components are that there's transparency and accountability for these programs. We're talking about, you know, audits by the Office of Inspector General at USDA, and then also a periodic audit by the Comptroller of the United States, which is housed in the Government Accountability Office. They do a lot of review of government programs. The Government Accountability Office regularly, that is their job, to audit different things across the federal government and make recommendations for how they can be improved. The other thing, and this is what I think is one of the most important pieces of the OFF Act, is that it would prevent checkoff dollars from going to organizations that lobby. And so to me, that's important because when I see an organization like NCBA getting as much money as what was recited earlier, I mean, I almost asked you to recite that figure again, because I mean, it's just an enormous amount of money. You know, I can say I've been in Washington, D.C. I've been lobbied by NCBA's lobbyists. Oftentimes they were walking in the door to meet with me about an issue that didn't relate anything to a cattle producer, right? I mean, it is the worst kept secret that the packers have an undue influence on NCBA. They know who they work for. They know who pays their fancy events and all their conferences and stuff like that. And I mean, you spend time with their lobbying team in DC and you know that. They're not, I didn't feel like, you know, my family's had cattle for several generations. I didn't feel like they were there representing what we needed. And that was very clear. We've mentioned that there's some blurry lines. You know, if you actually look at the law, yeah, these checkoff dollars can't be used for lobbying. There have been certain instances where abuses have been found. There's been other things of the blurry lines, you know, like I just mentioned to you, to get some of these organizations that, oh, I'll take it out and add in your magazine, I'll take it, you know, the money ends up subsidizing at best some of these activities. I don't think that's right. The OFF Act would prevent that. Give you the one caveat on the legislation. There's a lot of land grant universities. I went to a land grant. I'm a big supporter of them most of the time. A lot of them do a lot of good research. A lot of them do a lot of good checkoff funded research. The bill has a stipulation in there. Universities also employ lobbyists. So it gives a stipulation. It would not impact any university or land grant university that's doing checkoff research. Because that university might have a lobbyist that works on ag policy. So that's the general outline of the bill. We ask questions, but also would love to hear some other thoughts.
Thank you. Any thoughts?
I'd just like to say you're pretty much right on the power of NCBA down there. In fact, you've witnessed it better than us. I'd like to point out the fact that when you were being lobbied by those people, two of them for sure, and part of another one, they're not American companies. Those are national or international multi-country interests. Those are foreign interests that are lobbying us down there. It's no different than a lot of the other industries down there. We have problems with China and other buying up US land and all that. You've got foreign interests that are into your cattle industry in there, and they got the money dollars. They're controlling your senators and representatives down there and buying out. That's how they got so big and got their way into the United States. One of those companies, they're on the upper echelon that served time in their country, and we just ignore it. We let it go in this country on there. I guess the only other thing that I would like to say is those lobbyists are telling everybody down there that we're out to kill the checkoff. We're not out to kill the checkoff, and that doesn't just the beef checkoff, that's all checkoffs that are in the OFF Act in there. The OFF Act is just wants more, like you said, more transparency in there and fairness in there, and we need transparency. We need audits. Back when I was on the board, there was an audit that was done, which actually cost our CEO and our president their jobs. They got booted out of there for an audit on there. What did that audit find? It found about $300,000 missing. And when they went back on it and researched that thing, that was missing over 9 days that were audited. That's about 30-some thousand a day they found. They never went back and looked farther. Usually when you find something like that, you want to check everything on there. Never went back there. They were told to pay the money back and with business would go on as usual in there. It wasn't 5 years ago, there was a big problem in Oklahoma where a staff person embezzled, and that was more like $3 million, I believe, in the end on there. Yes, it does need to be scrutinized a lot closer, especially on the national level, working on it. When I was in our state beef checkoff, I thought we were being audited a lot. I mean, every 2 years. After I got on the national level, I found out nothing was being done on that. So our checkoff has been hijacked, as I mentioned earlier, by our #1 contractors controlling it. I'm not sure how many more years that can go on before it's done. And if the OFF Act putting some teeth into this thing, that's probably the only savior for our checkoff in there. It's not there to kill the checkoff. It's there to save the checkoff in my mind.
Thanks, Mom. Any other comments?
Can I take? Okay. As far as transparency and accountability go, I think North Dakota is probably the most transparent beef council or beef commission that we have of all of the 44. Being a state agency allows us to have all of state government that's looking over us, Attorney General's office, State Auditor's office, OMB, Treasurer's Department. That's our accountability. As far as transparency goes, North Dakota's transparency, pro-transparency state. And so you can go and look at every check that the North Dakota Beef Commission has written, and you can see exactly where the money is going. So Cattle and Beef Board will also tell you that North Dakota is probably the most transparent checkoff state as far as beef checkoff goes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us because we would love to tell you. We don't hold any secrets. So I mean, it's transparency and accountability. I think that we probably are top notch when it comes to it around the country.
But you do send some of the money to the federation, which is select, right? And so I'd encourage you all to, if your standards are that high here in this state, I encourage you to, impart on them that you like that same level of standard over there.
Sure. So I actually should clarify, because we've thrown the word federation around quite a bit. There's the Cattle and Beef Board on the national level, and there's also the Federation of State Beef Councils, and I like to think of that as the Beef Councils Association. Meaning that we pool our funds together, the 50 cents that we keep on the national dollar that each state gets to pool their money together to kind of pull up national programming and invest it on how our producers see fit. And so that's what the Federation is meant to do. Now, it does sit underneath NCBA, but it's a separate, it's a separate entity underneath NCBA. But as far as being audited, we're audited annually. The Federation is also audited and NCBA is also audited.
Can you say who all three of those are audited by?
I'm not sure who the Federation, but there's an audit committee that gets that.
Is it internal or external?
I think it's both. Clark, you sat on the audit.
It's external, there's an external auditing committee or agency that audits.
And then
Federation,
USDA
they
is
beef
also
council.
auditing as well.
So, but in terms of the audit, they're hiring a firm to come in and audit, right?
Correct.
And I think if you look at a lot of those audits, the external auditors will say, this audit is only as good as the documents we've been provided from their client, So, I guess from my perspective, that is not the level of auditing and transparency that I would expect from a $1 billion government program. So that's the distinction between the audits, you're describing versus the audits outlined in the OFAC.
The beef checkoff collects about $40 million a year.
Right, but the OFAC is all federal checkoffs, which total almost $1 billion.
Question, Nicole, does that federation and NCBA have separate checkbooks?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
and there's a firewall to make sure that people's time, because they do share staff members. So they have to document time for the 15 minutes. And if they would work on something that is checkoff related, so beef is what's for dinner, they have to mark that and that goes to accounting. And then that's the pool of funds that comes from. NCBA also has to pay all of the funds out ahead of time because all checkoff dollars are on a reimbursement basis. And so they don't get reimbursed for those dollars that they're spending checkoff dollars until USDA goes through them and it says that this is an approved spending process, and then they get reimbursed for that time.
Have they always had separate checkbooks?
I think so.
I'm pretty
Well, long as
sure.
I know that. And all that stuff has to be approved from CDB, so that money from any contractor that's spent at a contractor submits those requests for reimbursement to the CDB. Cattlemen's Beef Board has a staff that looks those over, approves them, and then approves them or disapproves them, and then pays them.
And,
Would-
go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Vaughn.
I'd like to, boy, there's a lot of things I could talk here for an hour. But that firewall, that's pretty mythical. When that implementation fee comes off of there, it's theirs to keep, it goes over the firewall. That's why that implementation fee is 51%. Because of it versus all the other contractors. Otherwise, if they were watching that, they wouldn't get near as much money going over there to it. If you look at the 990 form for NCBA, in the last one that I've been able to find, they're out there somewhere, but is like 2019. 82% of their money comes from checkoff programs. It all their gross money, which tells me, why aren't those packers putting in 50%? We putting in 50%, It's basically their program. They're making the money off of the whole thing on that deal. But as far as in South Dakota, and I'm not against your state beef checkoffs or ours. They do some great work. One of the best things we did in South Dakota was working directly with the Northeast Initiative, which is the New England states where the high population is. And the states of, we also worked individually with states like New York, Pennsylvania, and that. And we put that money out. We even sent people out there and they worked and went through the state fairs and stuff with them promoting beef. And it worked really good. In 1 year, we got the shock of our life. At about the end of the year, we got a check back, I can't remember whether it was New York or Pennsylvania for $6,000 in unused money. We have never got a check back from the Federation. Once that money is invested there, it's gone. It's done. Well, I was on the Cattlemen's Beef Board. We're going through the ARs 1 year, and USDA, which is promotes all of the meat overseas, the exports on there. Most of their money, and at that time it was about 10 million a year, goes through an AR, which goes through MCBA.
That doesn't happen anymore. USDA happens their own individual contractor.
And the MCBA was actually taking an implementation fee out of their money before we wrote the check and sent it on to them. It's just a fine thing, that money making scheme. And if the states would work more individuals with the high population areas, I think that would be a lot better. We'd be promoting more beef.
Nicole, do you know if the packer-owned cattle are paying the checkoff, or do you know that? Because I've been told they do not pay the checkoff dollar.
When they change entities, so if the packer owns feedlot cattle under a different entity name, and it goes to a JBS or a Cargill, and it changes entities, then those cattle are, paying the checkoff, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments?
I have one question that we can kind of wrap up. This comes from the governor, running for governor, Merrill Pepcorn. I also like to point out that Kara Mund for representative is also in the room now. But I think this would be a good finishing question for us. He asks, if there is there a future for more beef processing plants in North Dakota? And if so, what size of facilities is practical and doable?
Take on that question.
Yep.
To start with anyway. Right now, I think we have plenty of processing facilities in North Dakota, state inspected and federally inspected. What we need is a rendering plant to dispose of all the renders. I mean, I think they have to go to a landfill now, and they have to pay a high price to go to that landfill. Let's work on a rendering plant. We have plenty of facilities, processing facilities.
I would agree to that. Our rendering goes to Minnesota. So transportation, everything, it's a high cost to the plant. And now that hides are worth something, it's kind of offset some of that cost, but for the most part, most of the plants in the state are busy. Yeah, certain areas there may be room for a plant, but you know, I would be I don't know how would I say it. Since COVID hit, that was a big thing. Everybody was grasping for getting something processed, or a friend, a neighbor, a relative, whatever. So that at that point there was. It's really leveled off the last year. If there was money spent promoting beef in North Dakota for schools, hospitals, nursing homes, there would be a need for a little more capacity to serve those opportunities.
Thank you. Get a comment on that. I'd love to have an Aberdeen sized plant in North Dakota. The reason I don't finish any cattle here, freight bill is $80 a head to get into the process. So if you had an Aberdeen sized plant in North Dakota, you would see our feeding industry grow as well. We wouldn't ship near as many cattle out of the state. So I mean, I think it's something we have to get done. I don't know how we're gonna do it. It's for this state to grow in animal ag, it needs a processor.
Any other comments? Just needed the producer. I think as long as one fruit being exported out of our state to be processed, we need more plants.
I would just add on there, we haven't seen it lately. I'm amazed every day that when I wake up that Aberdeen is still working. There was a time when those small plants got either bought out or shut down real quick on there. I think we'll see that again someday by the big four on there. So it's my thought that along with processing plants, we need the gypsy rules brought up to date for those small processing plants to be able to survive. They've got to be able to hold their own in court. The fact that they have to show injury to the whole industry before they prove injury to themselves is, and whether it's a rancher or a processing plant or whatever, that's just benign. You know, it's like saying if I was in a car wreck, wanted to sue somebody, I'd have to show that everybody else in the world that was in that same car wreck, you know, that was injured on there. The courts are against the ranchers and the beef industry when it comes to that, and that's because it's controlled by the big four.
Thank you.
When we talk about North Dakota branded product, that's what it takes, take us on.
Thank
You
you.
just got a JDS, how are you gonna prove that they were your cattle coming back in box?
Any other
Alright.
comments? We've run over time and I see you brought in the food. and-
I think, yeah, if we have any more questions, I think we can ask them personally. I think this is a good spot to.
And like Sam said, Carl Hunter's here. She's running for the U.S. House of Representatives. She was good enough to show up this morning with Katrina. So it's been a good day as far as us making contact with our politicians, which is probably more of what we need. We need to be talking to the people who actually change the news. So get out there and call these guys. They work for you. You don't work for them. They're paying their salary. And the only way any of it is going to change is you can talk with them. So thank you all. Thank you. It was a very good discussion. It's very complicated and there's a lot of work to do. So, yeah, thanks, Dave.